So something really weird. My cats are running around this whole video. Something really weird happened. I don't even know what I'm filming or what this video looks like or anything. I don't have my ring light set up. I don't even know if this is gonna be on the internet. I just feel like if I don't talk about this, I just feel like it's already like disappearing from my brain. I don't even know if that makes any sense, but I've been telling this story to everyone that I can tonight, to my friends, to my brother, to the police, to Uber, and I have a notification from Uber, actually. They responded to my inquiry about this incident, in case anyone doesn't believe me, and that's my darling corpse husband. I love you. I don't know why I want to talk about this still after like everything that I've been through tonight. And again, I don't even know if I'm going to put this on the internet, or if I do, what it's going to look like, but I just feel like I have to, I don't know why, I just feel like I have to talk. And I'm in my Barbie onesie, and I've cried a lot tonight, and I think you can probably tell. I have a headache, I'm tired, I'm confused, I'm really overwhelmed, and I want to talk about what happened to me in the backseat of an Uber that I took tonight. I take Uber a lot in LA. I'm so sorry if I do put this online because I'm going to be so emotional this entire time. I take Uber a lot in LA. I don't have my car. I keep it in Georgia. When I did have my car in LA, I didn't really drive here because I just get a lot of like road anxiety, and I genuinely feel like it's safer for everyone involved if I take a freaking Uber, you know? I take Uber a lot, and I've had weird Uber experiences. I've made Uber story times, but definitely nothing like this has ever happened to me. And I was basically out at dinner with my manager, Jake, and some people from his management company. And then there was a screening of one of his other clients' short films after, and he asked if I wanted to go, and I said, of course. So I went. I had had a few drinks. Nothing that impaired my judgment whatsoever. I know when something's a weird situation. I sobered up immediately when this all started happening. But of course, after leaving the screening, I took an Uber home. And I was standing with two people from my manager Jake's company, and we were just talking, and everything seemed totally normal when I got into my Uber. It was this silver Hyundai, the license plate matched. I always check for that. I'm so careful when I choose my Ubers, and I'm so careful about like never getting into a car I don't recognize, and if somebody doesn't have the car that's in the app, I immediately cancel it, you know, like I'm very cautious with Uber. So this Uber ride started out normal. I had a male Uber driver. I'm sorry, the cats are playing with their toys and stuff. I had a male Uber driver. When I first got in the car, I just noticed that he was like very friendly and very nice. He's asking me questions, very normal stuff. What do? I always say I'm in social media marketing when I don't want to say that I'm an influencer, because it's an easy way for people not to, I don't know, look at your social media. I just get embarrassed sometimes. Not because of my social media. It's such a weird word, influencer, and I don't know. Anyway, so I'm gonna have to take that away from them. Hang on. So later on in the conversation, after the first like 10 minutes, I'd say, my driver circled back around to the fact that I'm from Georgia, and maybe I don't know how anything could have changed any of what happened tonight. I'm trying to like find a reason that I could have done something different, but I don't know what I could have done differently. So he circled back around to the fact that I'm from Georgia, and he just said, that makes so much sense. You're like very sweet, you're very kind, like you seem like a very like sweet person. And he started describing me as like, he was like, I feel like I could see you like sitting on a porch, like making sweet tea, and like just very Southern, like very classically Southern things. And again, I didn't think anything of this. I just thought he was being friendly. So I said, oh, you know, thank you. Like, where are you from? Then he shared some stuff about himself, and we talked, and he just talked about like wanting to be a model, and like, I guess that also should have been my red flag, that he probably knew who I was to some extent. But I, again, didn't think anything of it. This is LA. Everybody wants to do everything out here. So, and again, I don't think that this happened because he knew who I was. I think that was just a random side piece to this story. So, he says, it's weird that you're from Georgia. You remind me so much of this person. I can't believe I'm coming to YouTube with like brand new hair, speaking of which, and this is what I'm filming first. He was like, you remind me so much of this friend that I have, and she's also from Georgia, and like she literally looks just like you, and it's so weird, you guys even like seem the same. And I was like, oh really? That's so cool. You'll have to tell her you met her twin. And he's like, no, like you have the same hair color and like the same eyes. And he starts describing this friend that I don't actually think exists, but he was describing her in a very like sexual way. This video should not be viewed by anyone under the age of like 18, FYI. Sorry, I should have said that earlier. Because this entire story is very much so like sexual, and like this man talking to me in a very like sexual way, and like eventually just like crossing the line into sexual harassment. And anyways, so he started describing her in a very like sexual way, and I was kind of like, oh, like again, didn't think anything of it. Like I again just thought he was talking. So he keeps talking about her, and he was like, you guys are just so similar. You're both like very nurturing. Like he was saying this about me like he had any idea who I am, but like, and again, that should have been a clue, but he was like, you just seem like very nurturing people. Like she is actually very motherly in like other ways, and very nurturing in other ways. And I was like, oh, well, cool. Like didn't know what he meant, but also didn't care enough to like press into the conversation. It was starting to get weird at this point. And also, it's funny because every 10 minutes of this ride was different. So the first 10 minutes he was super friendly, and I can look at this now looking back. Of course, in the moment I didn't realize it. I just thought things were progressively getting weirder. But the first 10 minutes were totally friendly, totally normal, maybe a little bit over friendly, but whatever. The next set of like 10-ish minutes were him starting to cross lines, and then it just gets worse and worse from there. And it's weird because he started driving more erratically as this conversation started getting weirder. So I was really more so focused on that, and that the car ride was starting to get a little bit rocky. He was starting to like kind of swerve in and out of traffic. Like we got really close to being hit like 4 times. And so he says something along the lines of her being nurturing and motherly in other ways, this friend or whatever. He was saying something like, I wonder if you have Irish in you because, oh, that's so similar to her, and just trying to relate me to this woman. And also just, it was weird. There would be breaks in this conversation. He would tell me about his trips and these travels that he's had over his life, and which was, you know, interesting, but like, I think that that's why it caught me so off guard when it was almost like past the point of no return, because it happened so gradually until the point where I was like, how did we get here and how do I get out? So I kind of brushed past it, whatever, and he kept circling back around to it and back around to the topic of his friend being like nurturing in other ways. And he was like, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And I was like, I really don't, but like clearly you don't have to tell me, we can talk about something else. He kept bringing it up, kept bringing it up, kept bringing it up, until eventually he just goes ahead and tells me, and again, if you're under 18, stop watching now, but he tells me that his friend is into, I think he called it A&R, which he then went on to describe as adult nursing. And so maybe this is dumb, but even then in that moment, I didn't think it was a sexual thing. I thought, I don't really know what I thought, but I kind of was just like, oh, like, I still don't know what that is, but like, okay, like, good for her. Like, was not like pressing for further information. In fact, like, very much so felt like I was like deflecting in all of this and trying to like get away from this conversation because it just was starting to feel wrong and weird. So then he starts talking about how his friend is motherly in this way, of this adult nursing, and that's when it like kind of clicked in my head that like, oh, this is a kink. And not that I judge and not that I care. You know, I think that, and I said this in the conversation at one point to try to just get it to end because I didn't know what kind of conclusion he was looking for. I was like, whatever helps people be more high functioning versions of themselves, I guess, like, you do you. Like, there are people who are into feet. I'm not into feet, but if you're into feet, like, and you're not hurting anybody, cool. And I literally said those exact words. Was not trying to feed into the conversation, but it just kept coming up, and I was trying so hard to end it, if that even makes sense. And I keep looking, it's so crazy because I know I'm not the one who was in the wrong here, but now I'm looking back on my actions and I'm so critical of myself and critical of the way that I responded, because like, what if he did take that as an interest, and what if he did take that as like me like wanting more information, even though I would shut it down flat every time it came up. He started asking if I would ever do something like that, or if I would ever be interested in that kind of thing, or if I was interested in that thing. And I said no. Actually, it makes me really uncomfortable, like even the thought of it. And I said to him that I was really uncomfortable, and but also just felt weird. And so maybe, I don't know, again, I'm like looking over everything I did in this situation, trying to find where I went wrong. But anyways, basically said, no, it actually makes me pretty uncomfortable. So he said, well, it's really interesting. Like, a lot of these women that I know who are into this, you know, they really say that it makes them feel like the most nurturing, like best versions of themselves, and they really enjoy it, and it makes them feel very powerful and empowered and all of this stuff. Like, whatever. He was like, I feel like, you know, you're just so sweet and so nurturing. And then he was like asking me if I like cook and bake and all of this stuff. And again, taking it back to like me being Southern and like sweet and like, I guess just like a docile woman. I don't know. Like, that just is what it kept going back to. The persistence of it all, I think, was what really scared me, because I kept shutting it down. And it went from me like kind of like lightly trying to shut down the conversation and put in like an AirPod, you know what I mean, to signify I was done talking, which I don't try to do that very often. I obviously want to talk to people and talk to drivers, but like this thing was so weird and made me so uncomfortable. So it went from that to just like me saying, no, like, I'm uncomfortable, no. This whole time he was just starting to drive like crazier and crazier, like more and more erratically, like missing exits, like literally like crossing over like huge not barriers, but like missing exits, and then like driving, like, you know, when you miss the exit and there's like all of that like space where you technically could drive over it, but it's like not really legal, and there's all those like lines to tell you like, hey, don't do this, like doing stuff like that, almost hitting people like multiple times and all of that. And then he finally, like, after again, like me just sort of dodging this, I at this point had started just feeling a little bit uneasy. So I texted a friend of mine, and it was basically like, hey, like, this is happening. I don't know what it means. I don't know if it's nothing. I kind of just wanted to tell somebody because I'm starting to feel kind of weird. And he was asleep, so he didn't text me back. But I then sent my location to another friend just so somebody knew where I was. And then this is where things kind of hit that point of like, I guess like no return, or like the height of like the night, I guess. So my driver asked me, my Uber driver asked if I had like a boyfriend who wanted me to do something like that. He was like, if you had a boyfriend who wanted you to mother him and nurture him in that way, like, would you? And so I lied and I was like, well, I do have a boyfriend, which I don't, but I was like, I do have a boyfriend, and no, I would never do that. Like, once again, like, you know, and I repeated it. I was like, this makes me super uncomfortable. Like, you know, not something I'm into at all. And then again, just more of like him talking about like how I seem like I would be really good for it, and talking about my body. And he just kept looking at me and like turning around in the car and looking at me in the rearview mirror and talking about me nonstop. And then he was like, I want you to follow me on Instagram, or I want to follow you on Instagram. And I was like, oh yeah, like sure. And didn't have any intention of it, but like kind of was like excited for the conversation to go elsewhere. And so it kept coming up like over and over and over again, like 5 times over the course of the car ride. He was like, I want you to follow me on Instagram. I want you to follow me on Instagram. He was like in the car, like looking at his phone, mind you, still driving crazy, like looking on his phone to see when I was following him so that he could get the notification. And so finally, after he checked for like the 5th time I followed him, and when I followed him, it said follow back. So, I don't know if you guys know, like on Instagram, if someone follows you already, it'll say follow back instead of follow. So he had already been following me, and he looked at my photos while I was in the car. And I don't know if you guys know this, but I post like Savage X Fenty, like lingerie photos, and I'm totally fine with them, and I love them, and I feel very empowered by them, and it's not a source of shame, but like, he was like looking at my photos while I was in the car, talking about my body and how sensual I was. And just, I can't begin to express to you that that was like the moment that I knew something was like, I mean, I knew things weren't right, but I really thought something was very, 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 very wrong when I was in the back seat of his car and he was like looking at my photos in front of me and knowing that he had followed me before that. And he was commenting on me in a sexual way. Went right back into the adult nursing thing and was like, well, you know, women really enjoy having attention paid to their breasts, and like all the while like staring at my Instagram photos, like as he's saying like these things. And I just really thought something bad was about to happen. We were in a standstill traffic on the freeway, and I really was like, do I just get out? Like, do I just run? It's so weird because I told my friend earlier tonight, I told Corpse earlier, like I wanted to call him, to call anybody and be like, hey, you know, like, what's up? Like, start up a conversation. I tried to fake a phone call at one point because I didn't even know how to talk to somebody without like crying. I was so, that was my cats. I was so freaked out, and it was so weird. I don't know if he just knew I was faking or he didn't care, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna make a call really quick. And he just kept talking about like this stuff. Like I wasn't on the phone, and it almost made me feel like I was like caught in a lie and like I was in trouble. I know that this sounds very stupid probably to some people, but like in the moment, I can't begin to explain to you that I really thought like something bad was about to happen. Talking about my body and talking about like how women enjoy breast play, he is avoiding like the turns that he's supposed to be taking, driving really erratically, like just talking about me in a way that was wildly uncomfortable, and it just felt so dirty and so violating. And like I called my friend who was going to come over, and he didn't answer the phone, and nobody was answering the phone, and I didn't know how to talk anyway, and I just started really panicking. And I was like, well, my boyfriend's at my apartment and we're gonna hang out and play Pokemon, like literally just trying to like get away from this conversation. And he just kept going back to it and telling me what a sweet, nurturing, lovely girl I was. Like he has any fucking idea who I am, and like using me as fucking fuel to like talk about his kink. Like it was so violating and so uncomfortable. And so I'm trying to remember, I feel like I told this story completely out of order, but to like TLDR it, I got into my Uber, my driver seemed normal. I was then talked to about a kink that supposedly this person that they knew that looked like me had. He then began exploring this kink with me despite me repeatedly saying that I wasn't interested and that I was uncomfortable. Didn't stop, started commenting on my body, on what a sweet, nice girl I seemed like, and how he thought I would be interested in this kink. He looked at my body on Instagram in front of me after asking me to follow him 5 times. So we finally got to my apartment after this, and I hope I have fully in every sense of the word, express to you that I tried so hard. I tried everything I knew to get out of this, until the point where like I was just like, maybe I just need to like roll with it at this point. So I was like not like feeding into it, but also just like, oh, okay, yeah, totally, that kind of thing. And I really like, when I feel like pinned into a corner, like whether it's like somebody's like mad at me or I am in this kind of situation where I don't know what to do, I just start getting very agreeable. So I don't remember much of the end of the ride, because that was when the conversation just started getting super sexual, and he was just driving so crazy and missing turns and everything. So we finally pull up to my apartment, and I had him stop in a place that was not my apartment so that he didn't know where I lived. But that didn't stop him from waiting until I went into a building to drive away. When he stopped the car, he immediately unbuckled his seatbelt and turned on the interior lights like he was going to do or say something. And I pretended I was getting a call and held my phone up to my ear and grabbed my things. And I said, "Thank you for the ride," and then just immediately walked away. I got inside of my apartment. I immediately blocked him on Instagram. And then I called Uber. Then I called my friend and I cried. Then I called the police. And then like really good friends of mine were reaching out. Like, so many of my friends have been like so great tonight, and I just can't even begin to express to you like how much that means, because I like, it's so funny because I feel like I shouldn't be this upset, you know? Like, I've cried a lot tonight and I keep crying, and I feel like I shouldn't be crying this hard because like nothing happened to me. I'm okay and I'm safe and I'm fine. And what can this guy do, right? I guess it's just like the entire ride, not knowing if something was going to happen, not knowing, like thinking back to all of those news articles I've seen online of people dying or being kidnapped by rideshare drivers, not just Uber obviously, but like this is like an epidemic, like literally it's happening everywhere. Like the UK banned Uber because they're so unsafe. And don't quote me on that, I don't know if that's true. I saw something like that, but my cats are on crack. That was their food bag, in case you were curious. I just heard it knock right to the floor. Great. I mean, I contacted Uber, and of course their top concern was making sure I was safe, letting me know that they would be happy to assist in a police report. And they have been very kind in this, and just hearing my story. And I appreciate that when somebody called me, it was a woman, and I felt very comfortable telling her what happened. And I'm working with Uber. They refunded me for the ride, which I don't care about. Like, I don't give a crap about the $20. I really don't want this to happen to anyone else. And I guess like the most disappointing part about this for me is that like I don't know how to prevent it from happening to someone else, because I don't know why it happened to me. I'm so careful with Uber. I do everything right, and it wasn't enough. So that is what happened tonight. I am going to go take a really long bath and play Stardew Valley. Oh, I feel like a zombie. I don't know what this video is gonna look like. I don't know if it's ever gonna make it onto the internet. I don't know if I'm gonna edit it tonight. I don't know if I'll ever edit it. I just wanted to talk and say this, and yeah. Anyway, I love you guys. Please be safe. That's all. Thanks for listening. Bye.